Yeah.
Welcome back to the Gridiron Expert, bringing you our first FCS game of the week. And guys, this is a huge, long-awaited matchup on Saturday. We've got number 4 South Dakota State taking on number 2 North Dakota State. One of the best rivalries in the entire football championship subdivision. And we're here to break down everything you need to know about this game. A game that not only has major implications within the Missouri Valley Conference, but a game that will also have major implications come playoff time. So let's go ahead and take a look at a background real quick. First off, I will say this is a game that has been on my radar since last year, before the season even began. This is a game that has been hyped up for so much. Obviously, it's going to live up to the hype. Number 4, number 2. And the fact this game was postponed. These two teams were supposed to play 2 weeks ago on April 3rd. It got postponed due to COVID issues, so we've had to wait a little bit longer to see these teams in action, which is why this game is going to be even more anticipated and hopefully be even better than it was going to be a few weeks ago. North Dakota State, I will say, has dominated this series in recent years. The Bison have won 12 of the last 14 games against the Jackrabbits, including 4 in the playoffs. And there's a good chance, guys, that this will not be the last time these two teams meet in 2021. They may meet now. They may meet again in the playoffs here in a few weeks. 6 of the last 14 games between the Bison and the Jackrabbits have been decided by one possession. 6 of the last 14. So North Dakota State has won 12 of the last 14, but half of those 12, or at least most of those 12, have been decided by about one possession. And that includes the 2019 matchup where they only won 23-16. So a lot to kind of unpack here as we head into Saturday afternoon. One thing that I do want to kind of throw in there is the fact that this game has major Missouri Valley Conference title implications. When you look at the standings, North Dakota State is on top, sitting at 5-1. So a win here over South Dakota State clinches the division, clinches the conference. It's over. North Dakota State wins it. Something that many people didn't think they'd do after their loss to Southern Illinois many weeks ago. But if South Dakota State comes into the FargoDome and pulls off this upset on Saturday, they'll be 5-1 in the conference. North Dakota State would be 5-2 in the conference. North Dakota, if they beat Youngstown State, will also be 5-1. North Dakota would own the tiebreaker over South Dakota State. Therefore, the Fighting Hawks would win the conference. Think about that. So it's very interesting to see how all this plays out, guys. So a team from North Dakota will win the conference, but it's a matter of whether it be North Dakota State, who defeated the Fighting Hawks in dominating fashion a few weeks ago, or whether it will be North Dakota, who have been kind of the little brothers to the Bison for years on end now. So let's take a look at these two teams. First off, North Dakota State, they enter at 6-1. They survived Northern Iowa last week, 23-20. So a big win for them on the road, I should add. Survived them to get their 4th straight win since they lost to Southern Illinois. They also beat number 2 North Dakota, as we mentioned, on March 20th, 34-13, to show they're still kings of the state and they're still national title contenders, despite not looking as dominant as they have in years past. South Dakota State, they have not played a game since March 20th, so they might be a little bit rusty. North Dakota State at least got that game in last week against Northern Iowa. They haven't played since March 20th, but they did beat, in that game, 5th-ranked Southern Illinois, the Salukis, the same team that dominated North Dakota State. They beat them 44-3, forcing 4 turnovers and racking up 306 rushing yards. So again, that's not a fluke. That's not a coincidence. That's a legit dominant beatdown over a good Salukis team. And if South Dakota State can bring that type of intensity into the FargoDome on Saturday, well, we're going to be in for a barn burner. There's no doubt about that. So let's take a look at the offense. Take a look at the offenses for both teams here, and we'll start with the Jackrabbits, always giving preference to that road team. And you look at South Dakota State, we expected this team to be a run team well before the season began. If you did your research, if you looked at it, if you've watched South Dakota State for a while, you knew they were going to come in and they were going to pound the rock. That's what they've done. They're averaging 216 rushing yards per game to 186.8 passing yards per game. And that's not a bad number. But we know that if they had the choice, they would prefer to run it on the ground. And they've got guys that can do that. Before I start talking about the running backs, I want to mention their quarterback, Mark Gronowski. He's just a freshman. A reason why they're such a heavy run team, guys, and the reason that South Dakota State has really thrives so well on the ground is Gronowski's not playing bad, but he's just a game manager. He's just a freshman. He's going to get better with time, but he's a game manager quarterback that right now I don't know can go down there and lead a game-winning drive in the final minutes. He's thrown for 921 yards and 7 touchdowns this year, but is he a guy that can win in the clutch moments? When you look at the run game for the Jackrabbits, though, they're led by Pierre Strong Jr. Obviously, we knew coming into the season he was going to be one of the best players in the FCS, one of the best running backs in the FCS. Isaiah Davis also is like his complement in the backfield. You've got Jackson and Jaden Jake there leading the wide receiver corps, so a little bit of chemistry there with Mark Gronowski. But the one stat that has really stood out to me more than anything about South Dakota State is not their dominance on the ground and relative balance. It's the fact that the Jackrabbits have been a first-half team all year long. Listen to these numbers here. They're averaging 20 points per game in the first half alone. They're averaging 20 points per game in the first half alone. They've been averaging just 9.8 points per game in the second half. So 20 points on average in the first, about half of that in the second half. Their win over Southern Illinois was the first time all year that they actually scored more points in the second half than they did in the first half. And we know that if you want to beat North Dakota State, especially if you want to beat them in the FargoDome, you have to put together a complete 60 minutes. Yeah, you want to start fast, rack up the points, but you can't cut back. You can't slow down in the second half. You have to play your best full 60 minutes, full game of football to beat the Bison, and if the Jackrabbits can't do that, they will fall again to their neighbors up north. When you look at North Dakota State, what's their offense looking like? And I'm sure if you've watched them, you know. They silenced a lot of doubters just a few weeks ago when they took down North Dakota in such dominating fashion. One of those doubters was me. I picked the Fighting Hawks to win that game. Even though it was at the FargoDome, when I looked at the way the two teams had played, I liked North Dakota a little bit better in that one, and I was wrong. And I'll certainly live up to that and own up to that. They silenced doubters again, this time not myself, but did silence doubters again when they took down Northern Iowa last week, even though it was maybe a little bit closer than people thought it would be. When you look at Zeb Nolan, that's really the guy you're looking at here more than anything for North Dakota State, is their quarterback. We knew that when Trey Lance departed for the NFL that the quarterback position was going to be a major question mark for the Bison. Who was going to fill in? And we knew more than likely it would be Zeb Nolan, the transfer quarterback from Iowa State. But how well was he going to do? No one expected him to come in and be the next Trey Lance. That wasn't going to happen. He wasn't going to come in and put the same numbers and play the same way Trey Lance did. He's a generational talent. Nolan had his best game, I would say at least one of his best games of the season last week against Northern Iowa. Threw 8 for 16, 154 yards, and 1 touchdown. So 50% of completion percentage, but did have 154 yards and a touchdown, cutting down on those turnovers. He has 5 touchdowns to just 6 interceptions in 2021, but it should be noted that, he hasn't been benched yet. Maybe people thought that maybe Cam Miller might come in and kind of take over the starting job, and Miller has not gotten that opportunity yet. They are continuing to ride Zeb Nolan, who, like Gronowski, is a little bit of a game manager at times, but a guy that I do think owns the edge at the quarterback position in this game. And Nolan, a guy that can, I think, get the job done when needed. But the Bison, certainly, like South Dakota State, are a little bit more run-heavy, and that's been evident. They're averaging a little over 225 rushing yards per game. They have 4 players that have rushed for over 200 yards. They've got so many different guys that can contribute. I just don't think, you're going to see either team in this game try to air it out. They're not going to be a team that's going to be very pass-happy. Would be surprised if either team eclipses 250 passing yards in this game. I'm being quite honest with you. When you look at the defense for South Dakota State, we know that the major goal for them and any team facing the Bison is going to be shutting down the run. But let's look at what the Jackrabbits have done all season long, and it's really just been an unbelievable performance from them. They're allowing just 15.6 points per game. And like their offense, an offense that's not very flashy, they're not very electric, they're not fast, but like their offense, they just wear you down. They're methodical, they're smart, and they wear you down and they force you into mistakes. The Jackrabbits have forced 11 turnovers this season, 11 turnovers in 5 games. They have forced 7 turnovers in the last 2 games. So think about that. They're getting hot. They know how to create takeaways. They're allowing just 121.8 rushing yards per game, so not a bad number. North Dakota State's averaging about 100 yards more on the ground than the Jackrabbits. So again, 121 rushing yards per game allowing, not a bad number, but is that going to be bad enough to where they can't stop the Bison? That's the million-dollar question. They have to stop North Dakota State, especially since, again, I don't see Zeb Noland really being able to win this game solely through the air by himself. When you look at the Bison and their defense, they're not much different than the Jackrabbits. They are very, very, very stingy. And that's really been, as we've mentioned when we've talked about them before, a team that's creating offense through their defense. They're a team that creates offense through their defense. The offense sputtered and has sputtered at times, but it's the defense that has continuously bailed out North Dakota State for how well they have played. And the crazy thing is they haven't played anywhere near the level of South Dakota State when it comes to turnovers. The Bison aren't setting their offense up with very great field position. They're just knowing how to get stops. Teams can't move the ball on them. I mean, listen to these numbers, guys. Outside of the 38-14 loss to Southern Illinois, North Dakota State has not allowed more than 20 points to any team. Prior to that, prior to the win over Northern Iowa last week, it had been no more than 13. So that's really, really impressive. They have only forced 3 turnovers. That's the number that really concerns me the most, is they struggle to create takeaways. But again, it doesn't matter if you're constantly forcing 3 and outs. If you're pressuring the quarterback and forcing second, third, and longs, it doesn't matter. Only forced 3 turnovers here. They've won 6 games, guys, without creating many turnovers. A couple games where they haven't forced any, and they're still winning, some in dominating fashion. When you look at the rushing numbers, again, for North Dakota State, they held their neighbors, or their rival in-state, North Dakota, held them to 161 rushing yards. They held Northern Iowa to 98 rushing yards. They're allowing just a little over 110 rushing yards per game. So very similar numbers, again, to South Dakota State, but a little bit better numbers than South Dakota State. And when you look at a defense that's probably been the more consistent over the course of the year, it has certainly been the Bisons, 100%. It's certainly been North Dakota State's. So what's going to happen in this game on Saturday, guys? I mean, again, these are 2 national title contenders. These are 2 teams that you're going to see in the playoffs. 2 teams that could very well meet again in the playoffs. Yes, both teams want to win this game on Saturday, no doubt about it, but the more important meeting could still possibly come later on here in a few weeks. But who do we have picking in a top 4 matchup, guys? I mean, this sometimes doesn't even feel fair to have a game as high caliber as this and not be a championship setting. But I will tell you this, the last time that we broke down a North Dakota State game, and it has been a little while, but the last time we broke one down, I picked against them. And I picked against them at the FargoDome. I picked North Dakota to upset the Bison in that game. And we saw what happened. North Dakota State won, what was it, 34-13? I'm not going to make that same mistake again. I am not going to make the same mistake of picking against North Dakota State at home. And look, guys, here's why. The defense for the Bison is elite. We just mentioned that. We just went over that, and it's not going to change. The defense has been their strength all year long, and it's not going to change against the Jackrabbits. Certainly a game that both teams are going to be awake and hyped for. So the defense is elite. They're just on a completely different level. I also believe that they own the quarterback edge. Whether it's, some might say it's huge. I think it's slight. But I do think they own the quarterback edge over Gronowski at South Dakota State. I think Zeb Noland owns the slight quarterback edge there. And if I had to pick a quarterback to lead my team down the field in the last 2 minutes to get me in field goal position or get a touchdown, oddly enough, it would be Zeb Noland, who has been a little bit inconsistent this year. But that's the guy that I'm going to choose. And so in this game, guys, I believe that the Bison get one huge, big play in the second half to kind of bust it open. Not saying they're going to blow out the Jackrabbits, but they get one huge play, very similar to what they did back in 2019. One huge play to bust it open, really get the lead, either get the lead or extend their lead to the point where South Dakota State cannot come back. And the Bison will win this game on Saturday. They will improve to 7-1 on the year, 6-1 in the conference. They will win the Missouri Valley Conference, and they will prepare for the FCS playoffs, where they will, again, go to look to win another national championship. So, guys, thank you so much for watching us here at the Gridiron Expert on YouTube. Make sure to continue to like, comment, subscribe, share our videos, and check out everything down in the description below. If you want extra college football content, everything down in that description is for you. We've got our brand new Gridiron Expert podcast. Check out the links for all those things, again, down in the description. New episodes coming out every Thursday. I promise you do not want to miss them. We've got the podcast, we've got our website, we've got our merchandise, we've got our Patreon. Everything there is for you to get additional content year-round, 24/7, 365. So go give it a look. And once again, guys, as always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time right here on the Gridiron Expert.